Greetings and salutations. This is Abe Abdelhadi with The Bitter Truth, where we may not have all the... I can speak today. We may not have all the answers, but we're going to ask an awful lot of questions. You can also become a bitter pill or a spoonful of sugar by visiting patreon.com/The Bitter Truth, and you can get a bunch of stuff on the website that would make your life better by becoming a member supporting the show. And you can always listen to us on iTunes and Spotify and all the usual suspects. Today, I'm really excited to have a friend of the show who's been on before. Probably heard him first when he ran for lieutenant governor in 2018 against Lieutenant Dan Patrick and Mike Collier from the Democratic side. We have Kerry McKennon on the show. How you doing, Kerry?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just just been busy, working and just having a good time. I got into a band a few months back, just playing covers and having a good time and enjoying my life.
Awesome.
So let's talk, man. So since last time you've been on the show, which was after the Senate race, you're getting ready to run for the nomination for the Libertarian Party for U.S. Senate, right?
That's correct. That happens in April.
Okay.
On April 18th weekend.
Okay.
I'll be looking to get that nomination, hopefully to replace John Cornyn. There's the Republicans have quite a few people vying, and I think the Democrats have like 12 or something.
Yeah, they got 11. We've had Senator Hernandez on the show several times. And then I watched the debate a couple of nights back on Tuesday, and one person didn't show up, so it was 11 people. And I don't know if you saw that debate, but it was a really weird setup, man. They set it up to make it completely non-confrontational. They put them in these musical chair arrangements. It was just really strange. But they got 11. I don't know how many the Democrats have going, or the Republicans rather, have going for Senate, because I know there's a couple of guys, and I'm working on reaching out to one of them, but I haven't really seen a whole ton online. And then you're also, for the nomination, you're running against Wes Benedict, right?
I am. Within the nomination, Texas just changed to where we have to pay a filing fee now.
I was going to ask, that was my next question, because Neil Dykman, who I think you and I both know, was on the show about a month and a half ago, and he talked about getting a temporary injunction on that, but they're going to have to go back to court because the Attorney General decided she doesn't want to follow that temporary injunction. Did you have to pay that fee?
When I went to the Secretary of State with my paperwork, I also took the injunction with me.
Good.
And I was told we're not honoring the injunction, basically.
Wow.
And I said, well, what happens if I don't pay the fee? And she goes, well, if you do not pay the fee, you will not have met the requirements to be on the ballot in November.
Ugh, what a shice.
So I had a cashier's check with me for the $5,000, because for the Senate race, it's $5,000. And that was pretty much everything that my campaign had raised.
Wait a minute. Why was yours $5,000? I had Ted Brown in here a couple of months back, and he didn't pay. He paid $31.25. Why did you pay $5,000?
Each one is different for each office. It's not a set limit. So it's all different.
Right.
Which is a pain in the you-know-what.
Sure.
But all of that is to help run the primaries, which we don't get to take advantage of. And if they win the lawsuit before our convention, then, it makes the contest between me and Wes a little bit different, because then there's no possibility of Wes not being on the ballot if he was to win the nomination.
Sure.
If it happens after, then it's not fair to Wes, because some people are going to vote for me strictly because of the fact that they know that the $5,000 has been paid that guarantees us to have somebody on the ballot, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that's not fair to Wes. That doesn't mean I don't think I'm going to beat Wes, because I do, but he's in an unfair advantage, and I'm in an unfair advantage because I already had to pay the $5,000, and if they win the whole lawsuit, the state probably isn't going to give me that money back. And Wes would have had the advantage of running, but never having to have paid that. So it's kind of it's not fair to any of our candidates. It's not fair to our party.
It's not fair.
You know, Wes had first said that he was running because it would help the lawsuit, and I think that that's admirable, and I think there's a possibility that will help the lawsuit. I do think that it's also important that we have candidates on the ballot in as many places as we can.
Right.
And I don't know that we want to chance that not having someone.
See, but that's the thing, though, is well, first of all, the Republicans in Texas did that as a shice because they were afraid of the Libertarian Party, correct?
They're scared of the fact that they actually believe that the votes that we pull, in their mind, pull heavily from the Republicans. And so as those urban centers, especially in statewide races, as those urban centers start to vote more Democrat, and have the population, and what happens in the rural areas is the Republicans win by like 65 to 70%.
Right.
And in the urban areas, it's much closer.
Right.
But the Democrats win by 2 or 3%. And depending on the totals of those numbers, us getting 3, 5, 6%, we start getting 10%. The Libertarians really are, in their mind, starting to pull votes for them and play kingmaker. Mm-hmm. My viewpoint is, you know, your vote belongs to you. It doesn't belong to the Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, Green, whoever. It's yours until you actually cast it and say, that's the person I want to vote for.
Right. And God forbid you participate in a democracy, right? You know, it's the same argument that it's the same argument that the Democrats make. I mean, I just started working with Texas Free Press, and you know, it's a big birth of folks. It's almost like free and equal elections, where you got, you know, libertarians and, you know, progressives and Greens and whatever. So I wrote an essay the other day called "Bernie Sanders is Comfort Food," and released a recording of it actually today. And anyway, long story short, I got a lot of gas for that. And, you know, I'm not a Trump guy. You know me. I'm not a Trump guy. Definitely not a Republican. And, you know, I'm left of the Democrat. I'm not a Democrat at all. I mean, anybody, and my policy the last year or so has been pretty much anybody that's voted for war or for the defense budget can go fuck right off. And that includes Bernie, because he's got a great rhetoric up front. But then you look at his voting record, not so hot. So, you know, and then his regularity with how he throws people under the bus, I just challenged a lot of things. And I got a lot of shit for that. And they're going, hey, it's your fault if we get Trump again. No, it's not my fault if we get Trump again. 68% of Bernie Sanders supporters last time voted for Hillary Clinton, whereas only 60% of Jill Stein voters were not going to show up at all if Jill Stein wasn't on the ballot. So,
yeah, well, you also have to realize that there is probably 48 to 52% of the people that don't vote at all.
At all. And you got to give them a compelling reason to come out. Just saying, you know, Trump's a mean man and sends bad tweets, that's not enough to have him have some guy who's not voting because he doesn't see his interests being reflected. I mean, look at the states that Trump took. That's another thing the Democrats like to ignore, and I think the Republicans ignore a lot with you guys, is that the states that Trump took in the quote Rust Belt and the red states that he took, those states voted for Obama twice. Right? Yeah. So it's like, well, wait a minute. If they voted for Obama twice and they're either voting for Trump or not voting, maybe Obama and W's policies didn't work really well for them. Why don't you instead of sniping at Ukraine Gate and making up all this bullshit and, you know, having Michael Bloomberg come in and buy his way onto the debate stage with no small dollar donors, so they changed the rules, why not come up with compelling ideas that people would want to come out and vote for? Right?
Well, if the Democrats were smart, in my opinion, and I think it would be if this person won, would be also best for the country as well,
right?
And for pragmatism, I think the Democrats, if they were smart, they would choose Amy Klobuchar.
Oh, God, please shoot I would rather eat my own eyelids than watch that woman speak one more time. If she was cursed with an original thought, crossing her mind would be the shortest trip in North America. I know I got to come out of my shell. I'm working on it. Why do you say that? Why do you say that? Amy Klobuchar, I'd rather watch paint dry and wood grow. Like, why?
Well, first of all, I think she is the least offensive across the board
Yeah, it worked so well the last time.
of those running.
Right.
I also think that it helps the Democrats to have somebody from the Midwest and especially to try to help get that Rust Belt
She ain't going to do it. She just signed up. She just signed off on USMCA. And you as a libertarian cannot disagree with me on this. You know that's a bullshit fucking deal. That is the same thing as NAFTA or the TPP. And Trump said he wouldn't do TPP. And the only reason he said that is because Obama did it. As soon as he gets the USMCA, he signed off on the USMCA, which is NAFTA on steroids. And she signed off on that.
I understand that. I'm not saying that I would vote for her.
No. But you're saying these as a strategy. I'm saying they'll get their asses kicked. He'll destroy her in the general with that shit.
Well, I think he will to a certain point, but there's a lot of things that he's gonna. I mean, the only person he can't really use stuff against right this moment is probably Bloomberg.
Say that again. Do what against Bloomberg?
I mean, there's not a whole lot that he's going to use against Bloomberg other than the fresque and
that's plenty.
Some of the tax stuff that happens in New York, but he's going to eat. Elizabeth Warren is going to get.
Oh, listen! I'm going to tell you right now. Of all the Democrats, there's not one of them. The other night I watched the debate. Last night, how old am I? It was last night. Joe Biden was on steroids. It's awesome because he was obviously coherent. You know, his steroids were kicking in. I've been on steroids when the doctor gave them to me. You think clearer. You're like Superman. So he was focused and he was talking sentences. But shit, the guy's got a crap ass record. You know, the guy wrote the Patriot Act. The guy, invented the crime bill. He's the one who coined the term super predator, by the way, that Hillary Clinton was spouting about in the 90s. So got a Glass-Steagall. I mean, voted for the Iraq War, voted for pretty much every war, and bragging about the accomplishments of the Obama administration, which has been to leave us with 7 wars, a higher debt, a shitty healthcare plan where 500,000 people still file for bankruptcy, despite the fact that they have insurance. We got forced to buy a predatory product with no controls that's flawed, but and sold to us by an unregulated monopoly. But as far as but to get back to Klobuchar, listen. These guys, they keep saying this myth. We need somebody from the center. Well, Hillary came out and said everything was whiz bang awesome, great. That's why she got her ass kicked. And she didn't win. She had the popular. She had the popular vote. My ass. She got most of California. The Electoral College, which even Vladimir Putin, if you believe that shit, knows what the Electoral College is. John Podesta didn't know what the Electoral College was. They got surprised by that. They got shocked by that. You didn't visit those states, right? I don't know, man. Yeah. Klobuchar, I don't know, dude. That's a reach, man. They need some. The only thing that wins elections, and this is why people gravitate to you guys in the Greens, is hope and change. Telling me status quo is great, everything's great. We just need to get back to where we were before January of 2017. That's not what I want to hear. That's not what the people you just said. The 48-50% that are undeclared or don't vote, that's not what they want to hear.
Well, I don't know that those 48% are going to come out. Look, I think if it's Bernie Sanders, I think historically the youth vote has not come out. So
they will if you give them something. Well, you and me are about the same age. They will if you give them something. College was free when we went. Remember?
Yeah.
Dude, I went to Cal Poly Pomona for $100 a quarter. Now it's $6,000 a quarter. The youth will come out if you give them something.
It was more than that.
Okay, you went to a state school or private school?
I went to state school.
Okay, and what year did you get? I got out in '87.
But the school that I went to was a top tier school. So
okay, well, I got my bachelor's degree from Cal Poly Pomona, which was just I guess, a little podunk school out in California, but I paid $100 a quarter, and my girlfriend was paying $250 to go to UCLA. That was the expensive school because UC was
I think I was paying here in Texas they do hours, semester hours as opposed to quarters.
Okay.
And I think I was paying $175
for an hour. So would you get like 12 hours?
So for 12 hours, that's close to $3,000 for the year.
Okay, for the year.
For the semester.
Okay, so that's $6,000 a year, not
so
eight.
You're doing
not 18
you're doing
or
about $6,000 to $8,000 if you do summer school, maybe 10.
Okay, what did you get out of school? Can I ask?
I was a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. I did not graduate.
Okay, but my point is when I got out of school in '87, I was paying $100 to go to Cal Poly. My brother, who's a couple years behind me, went to Cal State Fullerton. He was paying $300 a semester. My girlfriend was paying $250 to go to UCLA. In the '70s, my cousin went for free to UCLA and law school.
Yeah.
Now, my point in all of this is we did have free college. You paid something, but it was a service charge for the most part. You weren't paying $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 a semester. That's what we do now. You want to give these kids? You want to give these kids something? You don't saddle an 18-year-old with $100,000 of debt, and then he's supposed to participate in the economy.
Yeah, I had with my grants and my student loans, I had about 35, maybe 35,000 in student loans.
Okay, and that's not great,
and
but it's
and I lack about a semester and a half. I lack about 22 hours.
Okay, so that's for pretty much a full load, almost to the end, right?
Yep.
So that's not impossible to pay back.
No,
it sucks, but it's not impossible to pay back. 100, 150, 80, 90. I mean, it gets, and then also too look, and then you look at our system for medical. I mean, listen, when you're the Democratic Party and the best you can pull off is fucking Ukrainegate and Russiagate. If I'm a single mom with 2 kids and I'm trying to put milk and eggs on the table, and I'm not even qualified for food stamps anymore because I got 2 jobs and I quote make too much money, even those jobs pay me $10 an hour, I still can't cut it. And you're going on about a phone call that, frankly, if Donald Trump made that phone call about Bernie Sanders, do you think anybody would have given a shit? Not the Democratic Party.
Well, I think there's 2 different things to speak to there. Is one being that the Democrats have moved into, and maybe even started even more so into the whole fear versus hope, and they're not even talking about hope.
100%.
So because of all the stuff with everything that went on with Ukraine, with the phone call, all of that, they have gone into fear mode of how bad Trump is, and he is the worst president there. He's the most, he's the biggest problem facing is Donald Trump himself.
Mm-hmm.
And for most people, nobody knew what Obama's plans were, but because Obama only talked about positive stuff for the most part, and hope and change.
Yeah, and he talked about
you didn't know what he was talking about.
He was very specific though. Obama. He ran as a populist. Excuse me. He ran as a populist. He ran on Medicare. He ran on minimum public option. He ran on getting us out of the wars. He ran on transparency. He ran on getting the banks. If you remember, when that TARP thing was going down September of 2008, he talked massive stuff on that. And then what did he do? Everything the opposite. He didn't keep a single promise of his campaign. But the hope and change guys always win. Clinton won on that crap. FDR won on that stuff. Kennedy barely won on that stuff. I mean, you don't win coming out and saying the status quo is great. And what you're saying is 100% true about the Democrat, because they're going on fear. And they're counting on people's absolute lack of memory, right? Like, Obama approved Arctic drilling twice. Trump does it and everyone loses their mind. Obama kicked 850,000 people off of food stamps, families off of food stamps. Trump does it with 700,000 people. Everybody loses their mind, right? And you're just going, okay, well, wait a minute. How come it's okay when the other guy does it, right? And when Obama was bombing the shit out of 7 countries, nobody seemed to care. Trump kills a general, which, broke a shit ton of international laws, but stay with me on this. Everyone loses their goddamn mind. Nobody cared that Obama droned 90% of civilians and his kill rate was ridiculous, right? But you're right, though. I agree with you. But listen, I want to move on really quick because I want to talk about you and your campaign. We got a little sidetracked there. Yeah. But it's cool. It's cool.
And I'm not running for president this year.
I know you're not. You know what though? But you should. You'd be a blast. No, but seriously, I mean, I want to talk about your campaign, but we got a little off into the weeds with whatever. But it's just that's why I like having you on. Because I never have to worry about you. But
it doesn't bother me. I'll talk about anything.
I know you do. So let's jump into your platform a little bit. I mean, so before when you came on, you run for lieutenant governor. As far as Texas was concerned, you were talking about legalizing prostitution, legalizing pot, getting a hemp industry growing in Texas, which all, in my opinion, were awesome things. What are you looking to do on your platform as a United States Senator?
Well, those two things are still there. Those two things are always going to be libertarian platform issues and libertarian issues to move forward, creating policies that make that happen. Working within the looking at the prison system that we have and while those prison systems are privatized, making sure that there's no quotas that they have to stay open. But as far as federal, we want to look at having a complete reform of the immigration system, making there some more options for people to be able to immigrate, and especially for those that are refugees or seeking asylum. What we have right now is that there is an unlimited amount of time, not really, in a timely fashion or in a timely manner that individuals are processed when they are put into holding or detention centers. And some are there for 3 years and or longer. And we need to make sure that there's those judges and those social workers that are there or caseworkers are getting those done in a faster fashion. So we know whether those people can go ahead and seek asylum, can be refugees, can go through the process. I would like to find a way for us to have a larger workers permit or larger visa permit that go out.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Especially for migrant workers or seasonal workers, for those that work in the, especially in the fields and the service industry.
Yep.
Because it would make it so much easier for individuals if they knew they were coming to work in the fields and they were coming for the season for the strawberries in California, so to speak, or the cantaloupe season in South Texas, or the gin season in the Panhandle for cotton. They would simply just fill out paperwork, say, I'm going to Santa Paula, California to work in the strawberry fields, Ventura County. And once they got there, they would go to that employer. That employer would help them fill out the paperwork, and we would know that person was there working at that time. Because when I was growing up in the 70s and we had a farm, what happened is immigrants came in and worked on our farm.
Yep.
But it was mostly adult males.
Yeah, absolutely.
It wasn't families.
No.
And so those adult males would come and work. And because it was much easier for them to cross the border and work and go back, they would come, they would make a living, they would spend money while they were here. Hopefully they didn't get sick or get hurt, but they would be consumers. They would pay rent. Everything that would happen, they would save up their money. they would usually take home goods that they could not get, shoes, clothes, different things.
Right.
Take them back across the border and go home, and they would have a huge amount that they made here would go much further in their home country.
Right.
And so what you have from other people when they talk about the drain on our public school system, the drain on the hospitals and the medical fields, those things didn't happen in the 70s because most people, if they immigrated with their families, that was a whole different process. And they were, yes, some people came illegally and brought their whole families in the 70s. Yes. But most of the immigrants that I dealt with in the 70s, especially on the farm and seasonal and migrant workers, it was just adult males, and they came and they went back and they helped their home country.
Right. Well, and when I was a kid, my old man, my dad's Palestinian. He came here in the 60s. My mom's Brazilian, so I'm a hot mess. But what my dad did for work for a lot of years was he sold dry goods to migrant farm workers out in the farms in California. And so I would go out with him on the weekends when I was 11, 12, 13 years old. I had a little side business where I was able to sell cassette tapes to these guys. So, Los Bukis, Los Tigres del Norte, all those guys. I sold those guys. Yep. And so I would sell them $3 a cassette, 2 for $5. That was my little shtick. And, my dad and me had a deal. So I had to pay him the wholesale cost. He was teaching me business. And I had to pay the wholesale cost of the tapes, which was about $1 a piece. So if I sold 2 for $5, I owed him 2. So, and at the end of the day, right, he'd be like, "Oh, how many tapes did you sell?" Yeah, okay, well, and he wouldn't be cool about it. He was like, "Well, it's okay, I'll let you slide. You had a bad day, only sold 10 tapes." Bullshit. He wanted his money, right? Which was good.
Right.
But then he would one of the cool things he would do for these guys, which would make them wait for him, because it was kind of a little bit of a competition with all these dudes, is he would cash their checks for free. And he would cash their checks without them having to buy something, because his attitude was, if they're loyal to me, then they'll buy jeans from me next weekend or the next weekend. It was like a little rolling swap meet he would do Thursday through Sunday. And then in the summers, he would go to Idaho, and he would, from California, he would drive from Idaho to Montana to Wisconsin, Nevada, and he'd be gone for 45, 60 days. He stopped doing this when I was about 10. But when I was about 11, 12 years old, I would go work with him. I say all this, I say this. I saw those paychecks. My dad showed me their check stubs. And he's like, "What's that?" I go, "Okay, that's SSI." He goes, "That's Social Security." "Okay, great. What's that?" "That's Medicare." "Okay. What's that?" "Disability." Because in California, we have disability. So all these deductions are getting taken out of these guys' checks. And my dad's like, "Okay, look at that guy. You think he's going to be here in 50 years? He's probably going to be back in Guatemala or Honduras or Mexico." I'm like 12 years old getting a lesson in immigration from my dad, who, has like a second grade education. And this is the dark secret that nobody likes to admit. We tax these guys, we wax these guys, and then we call them illegal and evil and all this other kind of shit. And the question I was going to ask you really quick is why? Because you made a couple of points when you were talking. Why have we how did we let the dialogue get conflated from asylum, which is perfectly legal to do and seek? 60% of asylum seekers, by the way, we send home. How do we conflate that with like illegal immigration and or criminals, actual criminals? How do we let that happen and justify putting kids in cages? Because that started way back before Trump or even Obama. They've exacerbated it. How did that come about? You live here. I mean, how did that come about?
Well, I think with some of the things that started happening in the 80s, and as terrorism started really moving forward, and we moved into actual military presence in the Middle East, and in all the way in from Afghanistan and on over through Iran and Iraq, and when all of that started happening, we really started talking about the war on terror. And as we did that, it allowed those that were anti-immigration or anti-brown people,
right,
especially people from Mexico, Central, and South America.
They love Canadians. Yeah.
It allowed them to maneuver the war on terror into, hey, look, we can use this to control the border.
Right.
And then as the drug cartels got stronger because of the 70s war on terror that moved those in, and as those drug cartels and those gangs moved into the southern United States, it became we're going to politicize the war on terror and use it to politicize and become anti-immigration. And then we're also going to use every time that somebody, because people that were born in America or that immigrated here legally, those people never rob, rape, or murder, right?
Absolutely. Sure.
Those people don't do that.
Right.
But every time that someone, and it's a tragedy. It's a horrible thing. It's sad if somebody does that. But if somebody kills somebody or rapes or any of that happens, those crimes, nobody say that those crimes are okay.
We're not going to ensure a perfect. I hear you, because we're not going to ensure a perfect world, right? Like the big thing they hung their hat on. I guess this guy shot a girl at the pier or something. He was illegal. She would have lived if he wasn't here. Really? Do you know that? Are you supernatural? Do you know that? We have 330 million people in this country. We have murders all the goddamn time. That's the point I'm hearing you make. How do we ensure a perfect world? By making sure there's no more immigrants. It's just the oligarch way of trying to pit people against each other, like back in the day when slave owners would make sure that the poor whites knew that they were better than the black guy. That's how you get slave patrols to go catch these people, because you're better than they are. Okay. And then you're working for the rich guy. You don't own slaves. You don't have shit, but you know you're better because your master told you were better, right? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, it's the same thing. The way that works, with the fact that the way that immigration policy works, and using terrorism/terrorists and drug cartels and those individuals that are criminals, using those three things to demonize an entire class of people, basically, for the most part, because it is on our southern border. Mm-hmm. We don't have the same thing in our northern border at all. Not that we don't have checkpoints on our northern border, but there's no one's ever talked of building a wall up there. We use that to demonize a whole class of people, much in the same way that we used drugs, and especially crack, to demonize the poor and minorities, and to not just include brown but also black people. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Whereas, that's a criminal behavior. Those drugs are criminal behavior. But all of a sudden, when it's the opioid crisis and it's affecting middle class white America or even rich Americans, it's suddenly a health issue.
Yeah, you're right.
And I want us to address the opioid crisis too, but to me, the way that we address the opioid crisis is we talk about big farm, and we talk about how there is that amount of treating pain and treating PSTD and depression and all these other things with opiates instead of with psychedelics through mushrooms or treating it with cannabis. So ending the war on drugs allows us to move that, to talk about that, to whereas if we can do that, and we can use the opioid crisis, which is now a health issue because it's white America, and use it into ending the war on drugs, then we can move into as those drugs become decriminalized and legalized, we can move into people not being in a cage just because of a plant. We can move to expunging their records of anything that is drug related.
Right.
That is a drug charge itself. Look, if you were smoking pot, or you drank some mushroom tea, mm-hmm. and you killed somebody, or you drove your car and hurt someone or did property damage, you're still responsible for that.
Well, sure.
You know, if you picked up a gun and robbed or killed somebody to support your habit, you know, and they found drugs on you, the only thing that's going to come off of your prison sentence is what you were charged with for the possession of the drugs.
Right. And to speak to your point, okay, I'm sorry.
Not the life sentence that you got for killing someone.
Right. And that's a different deal. But the point I was going to make really quick to speak to your point, 50% of incarcerated felons in state and federal prisons are for drug-related issues, 90% of whom are nonviolent, non-trafficking drug users. Personal use.
True.
The kid in Rikers Island is still waiting, an arraignment 3 years in because they found 2 joints in his backpack on a subway, right? Meanwhile, these banker pricks, get off scot-free. So to your point, but here's the thing: with the privatized prison business, which is a business, they pay a lobby for that. Because it's Jim Crow all over again. They got free labor. Those guys make stuff for Victoria's Secret, AT&T phones, uniforms for the Army, McDonald's uniforms, name it. Nikes, Adidas. We talk about these sweatshops overseas. We got sweatshops here. These guys are making 20 cents an hour. Kamala Harris, who was one of the worst attorney generals in California in my lifetime when I was growing up there, because I grew up in California. 40% of California's state firefighters are prisoners, right? They fight for $1 an hour. They fight for $1 an hour, and then when they get out, they can't get a job with the fire department, even though they're trained, EMTs, the whole 9 yards, because they got a felony. And it's usually some bullshit drug possession. Yeah. That's why they're in the general population fighting fires and rescuing people, because they're not murderers. They got nailed with a vial of crack cocaine or something. I mean, it's just like this is the thing that just to speak to your point. That's exactly the problem in this country. It is exactly. It's Jim Crow all over again. It's fucking slavery.
Now, I think the dollar a day is pretty crappy.
Well, it's $1 an hour. To be fair, it's $1 an hour.
It's $1 an hour.
I'm kidding.
To be fair, but I do know that they do get part of their sentence commuted for going and doing that as well.
They do, but then this is why the United States has an 80% recidivism rate, because then that trained guy gets put out on the street, and he's thinking, "Hey, cool, I'm trained. I spent 3 years doing fire and EMT. I can rescue people. I can work equipment. I know.
I get it.
Yeah, and then they end up dealing again, and then they end up back in the joint.
I'm just saying the whole part of that story is they also.
That should go without saying, right? That should just go without saying.
Yeah.
So we commute the sentence. Cool. Well,
here's the other part. I know someone that did it. It actually has accommodation from the governor for when there were forest fires in California, fighting the firefighters. Has accommodation from the governor, and because they're a felon, can't get a job.
Okay, see, this is my point, right? And this is your point, and this is where I cook with the libertarians, because I agree on this shit 100%. The Greens are the same way too. I mean, the only people that don't agree on this crap are corporate Republicans and corporate Democrats who are on the goddamn take. The very same corporate Republicans that got your stupid fee instituted because they were chicken shit afraid of you, and instead of coming up with ideas like you're talking about. Because I'm sorry, Kerry, if you got on Fox News and talked about legalizing prostitution and pot and growing hemp, you would fly through the roof. They will never have you on. They will never have the Greens on, They will never have the peace and freedom guys on. They'll never have you guys on because you're not towing the same, like you said, fear. You said it a minute ago, the Democrats are selling fear. It's kind of what it is, man. It's disgusting. And what's disgusting about it is a short memory. Last couple of years, Bolivia, Venezuela, last year and a half, right? I got grown-ass men, friends of mine, who grew up in this lifetime. Yeah, I could tell you about the USS Maine and Gulf of Tonkin all day, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in our lifetime, in our adulthood, Afghanistan, lie. Iraq, lie. Syria, lie. Libya, there were no Viagra rape squads running around raping people. Right? These are lies that we know in our lifetime. And with a straight face, my friends, well, in Venezuela, the guy's a dictator and we need to go in there. Really? We need to go in there? You mean like when we went into Panama the size of Austin, Texas, and killed 6,000 people to arrest a president that we installed after we assassinated the guy that was democratically elected? And when he stopped serving our drug-running business, we had him put in a Miami prison. I can't think of anything more American than that. And people don't say a fucking thing.
What makes me laugh and cry at the same time, well, not really cry, but really just pisses me off.
Disgusted. I get it.
When people say, well, we don't want anybody, we don't want the Russians or anybody meddling in our elections or affecting who our leaders are. And I'm like, I said, I get it. I don't want that either, but let's not act like we've never done that.
Oh, my God. They lose their fucking mind. Dude, I brought this statistic up. This is my favorite thing to say at parties. From 1948 to now, we have interfered in over 100 elections, not counting executions and coups and assassinations. And if let's just say Putin did do it, he would have had a goddamn good reason. The first 2 elections that Russia ever had in the history of their entire existence as a nation. Remember, they went from a monarchy to about 700 years of czars and whatever despots, and then they finally had the Russian Revolution, which was not an election. That was, they didn't do elections there either. So in 1992 and 1996, the first time ever they have democratically held elections, we fixed them to put in Boris Yeltsin. Because we figure out he's an alcoholic, he'll do what we want. And then we got pissed off that Putin got in there because he wasn't an alcoholic. He's doing jiu-jitsu every goddamn day, and he skates with the Russian hockey team. He's sober as a judge. And he's like, no, you guys have been raping us for too long. And then they got pissed at him. And I'm not going to sit there and preach. I'm not going to sit there and sing the praises of Putin, but he's no worse than we are. We fix elections. We kill journalists. We do all kinds of shit in other countries. And then the Bolivia coup, we overthrew the guy that was democratically elected to install a Christian right-wing fascist government with this dyed blonde bimbo who suddenly, for whatever reason, thinks she's white to chase the indigenous people into the woods and saying, you guys are the devil, you don't belong in this country. I'm sorry, because you dye your hair blonde, you think you're white? That's like me putting feathers up my ass and saying I'm a chicken. Come on. But we're sitting there. I had my friends last fall with a straight face saying, "Well, Morales has been there for a long time. Been there for 14 years. It's kind of long." I'm sorry. Angela Merkel has been running shit for 15 years. Should we pull a coup in Germany? And you know goddamn well why we won't pull a coup in Germany.
Yeah,
because she's white. They're white. If it's white, it's all right, as Chris Rock famously said. I mean, this is just what we do, man.
It's the hardest thing is, I think, for most people in this country to understand, and especially white Americans, is that we are not perfect or infallible.
No.
I mean, look, I love America. I love Texas. I might love Texas more than I love America.
I'd have to agree with that one.
I mean, that's just it's not necessarily a given, but it's pretty close up there. With that said, I have a very love-hate relationship, marriage, with my government.
Well, okay, real quick, just to jump in for a hot second. You make an excellent point because you love your country. You love Texas, as do I. But the government's not my country.
Exactly.
Continue. I'm sorry.
And I don't consider the individuals that are our current president, the people in Congress, our governor, they're not my leaders. They are merely my representative. And so that means that they represent me, and they're supposed to be there fighting for my liberty, and not so that they get rich or their friends get rich. And too often that happens.
Right. You're right.
Now, look, the biggest problem that I see, and the reason that I think libertarians are very hard pressed to ever get elected to anything other than local offices. And that's because, not that they're not completely unable to have this happen, but most libertarians have integrity, are very ethical, and are really running because they care about individual liberty for all. And they can't really be bought and bribed, and it's just not in their nature.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that libertarians aren't pragmatic in some sense. And that doesn't mean that when they do get elected, that they have to work with other individuals and change as much as they can, and protect as much liberty of our liberties as they can, because most of the time it's not going to be flip a switch.
Right.
It's not going to burn them, down.
See, but here's the thing.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, but the reason, though, too, the reason why you, the Greens, any real independent, any independent thinking Democrat, Summer Hernandez is getting completely blackballed by the media, right? Even at I was talking to him the other day, and the Texas Tribune guys wouldn't even talk to her. KVUE after the deal was over, they packed up. They talked to all they wanted to talk to, and they packed up and they just left her. It's because she's going to say the shit she's saying, and they don't want to hear it.
Who's that?
Summer Hernandez. She's running for the Senate against.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And here's the thing. You guys, her, people like you, the Democrats or the Republicans that are independent minded, and like Tulsi Gabbard, look at her. She's got more small dollar donations than goddamn Michael Bloomberg. He paid $300,000 as a bribe to get on that stage, and then they suddenly changed the rules that you don't need small dollar donations. Well, if that's the case, then why isn't Tulsi Gabbard on that stage? She tanks higher than Amy Klobuchar. She tanks higher than Tom Steyer, and he was on the last two debates, and she wasn't even there. This is an accident, right? And this is why, because when you got the media that's consolidated down into 5 different corporations, and this isn't a conspiracy theory, it's a goddamn conspiracy fact. Bill Clinton passed the Communications Act of 1996. The couple hundred odd companies that owned everything just got swallowed up, and up until about a year and a half ago was 6, and now it's 5 because of the Time Warner AT&T merger. So it's like, what do we expect? Comcast owns MSNBC, one of the worst places to work, according to many business journals, including Forbes and Inc. And still, they run the debates, and they want to get their guy in there. It's just, that's what they do. You would never get on. And if you did, it would be one time. You'd get on for some amazingly, you rescued a kid out of a car or something like that, and they'd want to talk to you. Oh, and Senate candidate Kerry McKennon. And as soon as you start saying, well, what I want to do is ensure liberty, and to you, and they'll never have you back on, man. Listen, and we got a few minutes here. But this is what I think. Follow me, and this might be real dark. I think before we see the kind of changes you're talking about, the Greens are talking about, Peace and Freedom guys are talking about, the Summer Hernandezes of the world are talking about, or the Justin Amashas of the world are talking about, we're going to have to see some full-scale France-style 1960 level riots. And what I'm counting on is the DNC to fuck Bernie again and have a 1968 DNC level riot like you've never seen at the Democratic Convention and destroy that party. And the GOP's goddamn next. And maybe we'll come to a point where we make parties illegal because of all their chicanery and gerrymandering and superdelegates and all that shit. You know, you guys shouldn't be paying $5,000 to run for Senate. God damn it, you're an American citizen. You're born here. You were raised here. I mean, come on, man.
Well, I can tell you right now, the Democrats that I'm talking to are slightly worried. And
they should be scared shitless. They should be scared goddamn shitless. But continue, I'm sorry.
But for them to tell me that they're a little worried means that they are scared.
Yeah.
That the party is going to split after this presidential election.
It's not going to just split. Heads are going to roll. I'm talking Gaddafi-style shit here. What they're saying is it's going to go. They're scared that it's going to go into the Democratic National Party, and then everybody that is supporting Bernie and on that side will move in and form a whole nother party, the Democratic Socialist Party. And they'll get traction. And they'll get traction because they've seen the corporate buy-in. They've seen what happens when you got a Kamala Harris who has like 5% individual donors, and everyone is billionaires. And then I don't know if you noticed this, when she quit, when she dropped out, I ran out of money. When she dropped out, I mean, she ran out of donors. When she dropped out, Pete Buttigieg was at 27 billionaire donors. The week she quit, by the end of that weekend, he had 40 billionaire donors. Number 2 behind Joe Biden. Yeah. Right? It's like these guys are kind of worried. No, they should be terrified. When Bobber Boxer got up in front of that crowd and was basically going, neener, we just fucked you and fuck Bernie. When they basically did that, that was the equivalent of Marie Antoinette saying, let them eat cake.
Yeah.
And I don't like to, she should have been drawn and quartered. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, Hager that's running for the U.S. Senate from Texas, that Democrat.
She's bought and paid for.
Yeah, New York liberal buy.
She's not, dude, well, first of all, if she's a New York liberal, whatever she is, good for her. But, dude,
that's where her money's coming from.
Oh, is that okay? Okay.
That's what I was told the other day.
Well, I don't doubt it. She's from Round Rock, and she got the endorsement of the Senate. The Democrats in the Senate have all endorsed her for this race.
Yep.
And I'm going, well, which means fuck all in Texas. You know, like, are you with a straight face running on one of your endorsements being the Democrats in the Senate in goddamn Texas? What is that saying that you're going to do for the people of Texas? Not a whole hell of a lot. And
I met one of the Democrats that's running, and he's ex-military.
Okay.
And
Victor Hugo Harris, that guy.
Yep.
Yep. I saw him. Uh-huh.
And he was like, well, you know, she didn't really see combat, and all her money's coming from New York liberals, and everybody, the whole party's pushing her. And I said, okay, you know, I just told him, I said, you know, I probably wouldn't, you know,
say that.
Say that. I said, I mean, the New York liberal part's fine. I said, but I wouldn't say about her. I wouldn't be disparaging about her military service.
Yeah, she got wounded in Afghanistan, for as I know. That part I think is real.
Yeah. I said, because you comparing your military service to hers,
it's been in 30 years.
Comes across as Texas.
Yeah.
You know, he said he was the best candidate from any party. And then he was better on the Second Amendment. And then at that forum, he said he was for red flag laws. And I was like, dude,
see, this
you can't be the best on the right to protect yourself by any means necessary if you're for red flag laws.
Well, see, and this is the thing. This is the challenge I've got with all of this stuff. Everyone's trying to make people like them. And, you know, this is why I like you. This is why I like, you know, guys like Neil Diamond. You're going to say your thing. And it's not about me liking you, right? You come in on this show. It's called The Bitter Truth, Not Big Wet Kiss. You know what it is going to be. You get it. The people that have something to hide won't come on this show, right? There's another show that records out of this same area that I record in, and they seem like nice people. MJ Hagar was all over their ass because all it was a big DNC Klan rally tongue bath. And I've seen that woman speak. If she has ever been possessed of an original thought, crossing her mind would be the shortest trip in North America. And I know that's the second time I've used that joke this hour. But man, she can't come up with an original thought or anything that wasn't canned to her. When she's told to freestyle, her closing argument in the debate the other night was just a bunch of mommy shit. She's like holding up her bracelet. Look, Junior, I'm wearing your bracelet. You be in bed on time when I get home. Like, wow. What are you going to do for the people of Texas, man? We got 100 million people that stayed home the last 2 cycles. What are we going to do for those folks, man?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like that's my point. Is like guys like you, Sam Hernandez. I've had a couple Republicans on. I got a guy running down south against trying to get the Republican nomination against Joaquin Castro. God bless his heart. He came on a couple months back. We chopped it up pretty good. But here's a Hispanic, Jewish, gay Republican. I go, shit, I'm going to get you on. Talk to you. Cool guy. Yeah. Nice guy. I don't agree with him on everything, but honest. Doesn't have an agenda.
Is that Morano?
Mauro Garza.
Mauro Garza, yeah.
Mauro Garza, good guy. Solid dude, businessman.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, but I don't know how well he's going to do against a bunch of Republicans in San Antonio, but he's going for it. And it was an interesting. If you listen to the hour, it was interesting. But he's got nothing to hide, right? So he came on, and but you try to get somebody. I've emailed AIPAC 5-6 times. They won't come on, right? I mean, maybe
they're not going to.
Yeah, well, maybe my last name's Abdelhadi, and they figure the show's called The Bitter Truth, and it's going to be an hour of. We're going to talk about some history, and they don't want to deal with that. But people like you, people like Ted Brown, people like Neil Dykman, people like said Sam Hernandez, people like that come on because they got nothing to hide. They're not afraid because they're not afraid of a gotcha, right? Like when you were running for lieutenant governor, I met Mike Collier at a business event that we were at together, and the guy was cool, man. He gave me his email, gave me his phone number, the whole 9 yards, and then as soon as I guess he heard the show, he fobbed me off to his campaign guy, and they never came on. They never came on.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, listen, I'm not doing the Lord's work here. I'm not going to puff myself up. I'm just simply saying there's a bunch of guys doing what I do. A ton. And they're going to,
and I told him, I said, look, Dan Patrick's not going to hold any debates because he doesn't have to.
That's right.
I said, let's do a debate.
Yep. Remember you said that.
The worst thing that's going to happen is Dan Patrick's going to look like he is chicken shit to come debate us.
That's right.
And so I'm going to pull votes from him, and you're going to win.
And what did he say?
Well, I'll just have to have my people get with your people. And I said, you either want to do it or you don't, Mike.
I don't have any people. I got 2 people.
I said, I got 3 people.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it, man.
And, and I'm doing the same. Cornyn's not going to debate.
No, he's fat and happy. There's no why should he get his ass? I mean, I was shocked that Bloomberg showed up at all.
I was too, and if he was standing beside Joe Biden, it would have been an ad for Botox before and after.
That's right.
Because Biden got some work done.
Oh, he's had work done a lot of years. This ain't the first time. He was having hair plugs back in the day during his first campaign.
Yeah, but I mean, he really got some work done.
Oh, yeah.
For this campaign season.
He always has that Madame Tussauds wax guy look anyway. I don't know when or where. I mean, it's been a while. And he just sort of...
His smile reminds me of the Grinch Who Stole Christmas.
Yes.
Like that, I'm happy because I get to be mean and get what I want, and I can pretend that I care.
He doesn't even blink.
But I don't.
The guy doesn't even blink, dude.
Yeah.
That's a psychosis right there.
Maybe somebody will go on and say he's a lizard.
Well, here's the thing, and we got to wrap up here in the next couple of minutes, but real quick, is y'all running a website like you did last time? What are y'all doing?
We are. It's McKennon2020.com.
Okay. And then...
and we could use all the funds we could get.
And then real quick, I'm going to say something. I forgot what it was. Are you trying to get into? Well, it's still the primaries for some of these folks, but once everything settles in, when there's a Democratic nominee and there's a Republican, if I don't think Cornyn will show up, but you think you're going to try to get a debate going with a Democratic nominee again this time for a Senate race if you get the Libertarian?
I'm going to try to do it just like I did last time. Reach out to them, offer, let them know it's in their best interest, and having them be there with me is only going to benefit them, and that's what I'm selling.
Right.
I think it helps me tremendously because I think it allows people to see not only the differences between us and the Democrats, but they'll look and see the differences between us and the Republicans. And I think it'll enlighten some people.
Sure.
I think it does help the Democrat to some degree, maybe, especially if it's Hager, because it's going to look like she was willing to fight.
Yeah. I'm hoping. I'm hoping they don't do that. I hope they go with somebody. I'm not, and no offense, I'm trying to get him on the show, but I'm not a big fan of Royce West either, given his history and everything else. But I just want somebody honest, man. And we're gonna have an enema. The system is gonna have to have an enema. I'm not voting for anybody in the presidential primary. I'm probably gonna vote for Holly Hawkins on the green ticket just because. I don't want to vote for anybody that voted for war or defense budget. And Bernie has voted for wars and defense budgets. And he always does that obfuscating, well, I was against the Iraq war. Well, yeah, you were against the Iraq war, but you voted for the authorization of use of force, which is the same fucking thing. Why am I voting for an authorization of use of force? I own a pistol. Why do I have one? Because eventually I may have to use it one day. I'm not just going to have some guy break in my house and then not use the pistol. The idea is to use the pistol. You didn't
vote for defense. You actually voted for offense, sir.
Well, there you go. And so that's the thing. And so to sit there and say authorization of use of force, and I'm ignorant, were there any caveats to that authorization of use of force? I don't know. But to sit there and act like you're completely anti-war when you voted for Yugoslavia, you voted for and then you come out and do the CIA talking points for Bolivia and Venezuela. Well, we need election reform down there. No, dude, the guy won by 10 points. We don't need election reform down anywhere. How about the white guy stay out of people's business? How about that? Right? It's frustrating.
Y'all can't even do Iowa correct, so I don't want to hear it.
Y'all, I ain't a Democrat, man. It's a bunch of cheating corporate.
Y'all to them, not necessarily to you personally.
Oh, right. Yeah, well, and that's things like they can't. Yeah, well, listen, we got a lot of challenges in this country, and the only way it's going to get fixed is by getting the problems out there and quit dancing around bullshit like Ukrainegate and Russiagate or whatever. Come up with some real solutions to some problems in real people's lives, and you might get some votes. You know what I mean? That's just kind of where it's at. But hey, guys, listen.
Totally.
Hey, dude, I appreciate your time, for sure. This has been a blast as always. And folks, as we're wrapping up, again, my guest has been Kerry McKennon. He's running for United States Senator. He's going to be he's contested with Wes Benedict, but we'll see how that comes out April 18th. But anyway, you can visit patreon.com/thebittertruth. You can also visit the TexasFreePress.com. I'm contributing editor there. I'm popping in an essay or so every week. And then you can also listen to the show streaming on TexasFreePress.com in addition to Patreon.com and iTunes and blah, 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 blah. If this stuff makes you uncomfortable, guys, it's supposed to. Sleep tight.